Hi, I'm Neha and you're watching Disney Channel. No, you're not. You're watching my channel. So welcome back. Today's video is kind of inspired by a video that I watched recently on YouTube. It's this one. It's by this doctor on YouTube. I just randomly came across her video and she was talking about the psychosomatic pain that comes with anxiety. And I don't know, I just felt really seen and heard when I saw her talking about it. And I thought I will also uh, talk about the psychosomatic side of anxiety, because I think that is something that people do not realize is a part of anxiety. Even I even more so because for me personally, I feel like that is just so much worse than the negative thinking side of anxiety. So I thought I'll just talk about it and create more awareness about it. And if you're also going through it, so that you know that this pain, it's just something that happens and this pain is in fact real. I will also link her video down in the description so you can watch that video as well. Um, I think I would like to start with like the more common symptoms, which I think are more like well known, and I'll also go into some more specific symptoms that I have gotten, and it's not something that I know that people, or it's not something that people really talk about a lot. Even people who do go through anxiety or who do talk about anxiety, especially like if you're looking up videos on YouTube about anxiety, I think you will get a lot of these symptoms associated with it, but you might also be feeling some very weird ass symptoms. I have a few of them, and I will give you one tip. If you're someone who is going through this, look up your symptom on Reddit, but make sure that you type, like, you put your symptom anxiety and Reddit when you're like searching it on Google. Don't just write the symptom, because then it will be the same as it happens when you type up some random symptom on Google. They will tell you you're dying or you're already dead. So don't do that. Just make sure you type anxiety as well. So if I'm going to start with like the most common symptom, I think that will be like the racing heart. I think that is also like the first symptom that I ever got. I can remember the first ever anxiety attack I had was when I was really little. I think I was like in third grade or something. So I was really, really little, and I was in this big carnival sort of thing, and it was very crowded. It was also very hot, and it was too loud, and the lights were too bright, and I just got overwhelmed. And I didn't even know it was an anxiety attack at that time. I just started to feel sick, like physically sick, and I told my parents, and we got out of there as soon as possible. And as soon as I went out, I started to feel better. So it is something that I realized like way later, like when I started getting anxiety attacks on the regular. That is when I realized that what had happened back then was an anxiety attack. But anyway, going back to like the symptom, which is racing heart, it is quite scary, especially like the first time I had it in my adult life was actually when I was like, well, I was not an adult yet. I was like 17 years old, and I legit thought I was having some sort of like heart issues. Because your heart is racing for no apparent reason, and it's racing constantly. Like it won't, like, sometimes your heart will race when you're like on the daily, if you're like doing something strenuous, but here it's just you're sitting and your heart is racing from morning till night, which is just really scary. I think another symptom related to this is sweating. I do get sweaty palms sometimes, But I think for me, like this temperature related symptom is more of like feeling feverish, and it's more like I will feel feverish and I can just feel that my body is really hot and warm, but I'll check my temperature and it is in the normal range. So it's just anxiety. It's just another anxiety symptom. I suppose your body is just too worked up, and I mean your heart is beating that hard. So that is probably creating that heat. So you end up feeling really feverish. Another symptom which is also quite common is hyperventilation, which is also something I've faced a few times. And that is also like one of the more, I think that is one of the more like symptoms which you just can't function when you're having that. At least for me, like even when my heart is racing, I can still cope with that somehow if I'm like outside or at work or something. But if I'm hyperventilating, that is just something that I just can't cope with. Like I have to be in a quiet space alone. I just can't be with other people when I'm hyperventilating without them noticing and getting worried, which is something I just don't want when I'm already anxious. Okay, another common symptom would be shaking or trembling. That is something I get specifically when I'm having an anxiety attack. I will just shake uncontrollably sometimes, and I have to say that it is a scary symptom, but for me personally, it kind of feels relieving. Like I really feel like that shaking is just getting rid of that excess adrenaline in my body, which is what is causing the anxiety attack. And usually when the shaking subsides, I feel very tired and drained out, but I also feel quite relieved and I feel quite calm. This is like, I would say, one of the symptoms that I don't get it always, but I kind of wish that I would always get it whenever I'm feeling anxious, because I feel like it helps me overcome the anxiety faster. Now let's get to some of the more uncommon symptoms, which are not talked about as much, and some of the symptoms that cause me personally a lot of issues actually. Like these are the symptoms which are scarier to me than anxiety. The first symptom, like one of these symptoms is nausea, and I do think that nausea is talked about a lot, but it's just such a weird nausea. Like I can personally tell the difference between nausea that is coming from anxiety and nausea that is coming from like digestive issues. For me, these two nauseas are different. And this is also something, this is like, nausea is the one anxiety symptom I have been having since forever, since I was like, since for as long as I can remember, honestly. And that is why for like a very long time I couldn't really tell that I was having anxiety. I just thought I had a lot of digestive issues or some sort of issues, but really it was just anxiety. So that is something to think about. If you also get a lot of nausea, maybe you would want to look into that. um and yeah, so like the difference between like anxiety nausea is that it sort of feels like something is stuck in my throat, or like this excess adrenaline or excess energy has sort of like clamped up my throat. Like I can feel how tight my throat is. And I think the nausea comes from like the fact that you sort of want to like clear your throat, so you get that feeling of like doing something that will empty your throat. This is one of the more annoying symptoms because it is also one of the symptoms that is difficult to cope with when I'm outside. And it also makes it really hard to eat. And I think the funny thing is that, like, even though now I can understand the difference between anxiety nausea and indigestion nausea, because indigestion nausea for me is always, I can also feel like my stomach is not okay when I have indigestion nausea, whereas for anxiety nausea my stomach is fine. It's just my it's just a feeling in my throat. It's like a very weird feeling in my throat. And um well, that is a funny thing. Like, even though I know that is just um this is just anxiety, and I'm not really going to throw up or anything, because I never have. I have dry heaved a few times, but I've never thrown up because of anxiety. And despite knowing that, it just doesn't make it any easier, and it just doesn't make the symptom go away, even after knowing that this is just anxiety. This is like not something wrong with my body. um, which is, I guess, like the point of this video, that psychosomatic pain is just so real. It's not just in your head, and you can't just, think it away. It's there, you can feel it, and it does affect you. um Another symptom is like a lot of pain. um Pain is also a common symptom, I would guess, but for me, the pain is like um around my around my chest. And I that is also like one of the freakier symptoms, because I mean, your pain around your chest is just, it does freak you out, especially if you have ever been through health anxiety, which I have as well. Which is one of the many flavors of anxiety that I get to have, like, yeah. And the pain, it is genuinely, I mean, I guess, like, if you rationalize it, it would make sense. Your body is just so tight, and your heart is pumping so fast, it would make sense that your chest hurts. But it's still so freaky, especially combined with that, like, rapid heartbeat. With that, there is also numbness in your arms. I get that a lot, and it's just like one random arm that will go numb. um and it's just so, it is also like, it's just such a weird feeling. I don't know, like, it probably isn't one of the more scarier symptoms. Like, it doesn't sound like that scary, but to me it just feels so scary, because your one arm just feels so different and weird. It is really freaky. It's like you've lost all, it just feels different. And I think just knowing, and because it's like one arm at a time for me, I can just tell that, oh, this arm feels like what my arm should feel like. And then there's the other arm, which just feels so strange. It just doesn't feel like it's part of my body anymore. Now, one of the really rare symptoms which I don't hear like anyone talking about is like a lot of like salivating too much, and not in a good way. Not drooling per se, but like it just feels like there's just too much saliva in your mouth and you have to constantly swallow. And I think this is related to like the nausea, because when you salivate, you usually salivate a lot before you're going to throw up. So this is just another very, very uncomfortable feeling, and I personally do not like throwing up. I don't think anyone does, but I am particularly terrified of throwing up. So this is one of the symptoms that's just so freaky, and it doesn't go away easily. Like, I don't know of like any way to like make it go away. Like for other symptoms like rapid heartbeat or hyperventilating, you can look up like breathing techniques and whatnot to like calm yourself a bit, and it does help. But this one symptom is just so like, it just won't go away, and that is more frustrating. Like, I just have to wait it out because I don't know what will make it go away. And I think this is also one of the symptoms that I just never hear anyone talking about. So that is why it just feels even scarier. Like, is this normal? I think if you're someone who feels a lot of psychosomatic symptoms with your anxiety, it is just, and unless you have like information about it that this can happen through anxiety, I think you will get freaked out, and it will just turn into health anxiety, because you just, like, why would your body do that without any reason unless there's something wrong with your body, right? But no, there's nothing wrong with your body, it's just anxiety. There's also like the general pain, like some random part of your body will just ache for no reason, and it's like a different body part each time. And just know that this is also one of the symptoms of anxiety, again probably because your body is just too clenched up and too tight. And yeah, I think anxiety is just so multidimensional. It's just so, I think anxiety is just so multifaceted. It just shows up in so many different forms. Like there is like the negative thinking patterns, the spiraling, the fear, the feeling of impending doom and terror. But I think the physical symptoms just make it so much harder to cope. Like even for short periods, like if you have something that needs to be done, I think you can still somehow like just push through if you are just having negative thoughts. But if you're also in pain physically, it's just really hard to just push through like that. And I think a lot of people who have not been through this, but who do know about the anxiety disorder, will probably not know about this aspect of the anxiety disorder and how much harder it makes it for those who are suffering from this. So if you're currently going through it, my heart goes out to you. And honestly, same. I am going through it as well. I'm just really glad that I just somehow dressed up and just decided to make this video. I honestly did not want to make so many, well, not so many. My previous video was also a little bit about mental health and anxiety, and this video is also about mental health and anxiety, which is not something I wanted to do because this is not a mental health channel per se, or and I don't see it as a mental health channel. But that is kind of like the main thing that's going on in my life right now. So I think it just felt easier to talk about it. And yeah, and I hope you feel better soon. All I want to say is, I know it's freaky, all these crazy random symptoms, physical symptoms, every time you think like maybe you are dying, maybe there really is something wrong. But honestly, like general um, the general advice is that if you have gotten checked out by a doctor before, if you haven't, then maybe do that first. But if you have, and it is like, and the doctor has given you a clean bill of health, then it is anxiety, because anxiety can show up in so many freaky symptoms. I think the only coping mechanism I can tell you is that look up, like search your symptom with the word anxiety and on Reddit. And when you see so many people are going through the same symptom as you, and sometimes people are going through even freakier symptoms that you would never ever connect with anxiety, I think you'll just feel somewhat at ease, and it can make it a little easier to get through. So yeah, I hope you get through this. I hope I get through this as well, and I hope we can both come out stronger from this experience. And yeah, that is it. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.